I think that's a perfect segue. Would you mind
Yes.
reading us some of your work now?
Okay, that's hard. I will try. I might try. So I'm not a native speaker, and I always worry that it sounds weird when I read stuff. I don't have the correct accent or inflection,
Right.
maybe. Or
So I'm going to speak for all Americans, at least here, not the English, because they won't agree with me. But you're going to speak it way better than most of us will. and everyone will actually love your accent too. So
it's exotic, right?
Exactly. They're going to love hearing
Exoticism.
your accent. They're going to love it even more. So
Okay. I will have you pick. Okay. Oh, go now. Now I closed the book, so I will have to find the places again. So one of the things I absolutely love writing is dialogue. I love writing dialogue, and I love it when it's snappy and quick, and you get a sense of the people's personality from dialogue. So I could read you a dialogue from book 2 of the Natural series. Which is Stella and John, as always, having a fight about something because he's a control freak. Oh, by the way, this also falls into the billionaire romance category. Don't ask me why. These things happen in my brain. Actually, I can tell you why. Do you have a second?
Of course.
I worked in the German aerospace, in the Institute for Physics of the Atmosphere. And right next to us there is a private jet airport. We share the fence, so I used to go for walks when I was in my thoughts, and you could see the jets, the Gulfstreams taking off and landing, and the BMWs coming in there, and the businessman come. So this is where this came from, the dapper businessman who's rich and meets a scientist. Like this is basically, this gave me the idea because they were there and I was there and I was a scientist, and there was these dudes who I looked through the fence with their, and then you think, okay, how it is to live like that. This must be very weird, to just get off your private jet and get into the Mercedes. So this is where this came from. But there's this super rich dude who has an energy, like solar energy development company. And she's a scientist who is very interested in things like that. And sometimes you have cooperations between industry and science, and they met. And he's like a control freak and wants to have his bodyguards and his security. And just like, oh no, I'm normal. Like I want to be normal. So this is a dialogue about how they fight about this. Then I have, if you don't like this, I have
no, I mean, I think we need to go with the first one. We just
or you can do the mental masturbation stuff. Okay, good.
We can do a little of each of them.
Oh, okay. How much?
Here.
Oh, really? Okay. So she's Stella and he's John, and he's the background here is she just wants to be normal, and he just wants to fill the space with bodyguards and marry her and control everything because he's a control freak, right? Just imagine 50 Shades of Grey, but with brains. Yeah. Good.
Okay.
Yeah. So you didn't have to treat him like that. He wouldn't let go, Stella. I was tired. I only wanted to have dinner. You realize I live among these people, right? I see them at school. I have their kids over. You can't treat my friends like that. He's not your friend. You know what I mean? This is a small community. Everybody knows everybody. You didn't even remember his name. That's not reason enough to have Andrew throw him out. Nobody threw him out. Andrews asked him to leave politely after he sat down at our table uninvited, and after I explained to him multiple times that I have no interest in his business endeavors. I just wanted to enjoy a dinner with my family in peace. His family. I should have been flattered, happy even, but the way he said it sounded more sinister than loving. He'd assured me he didn't want a 24/7 dom-sub relationship, that he really didn't need to be in control all the time, but he had already taken charge of our lives in an insidious way. I hadn't even noticed it happening. The bodyguards were still here, and they were multiplying. The charm of first offensive towards Michael, her son, had worked almost instantly. This was his way of life, and I'd been stupid enough to believe that I could keep a control freak under, control. Life obviously didn't work that way. I took off my glasses and rubbed my face. The heels of my hands ended up at my temples, where they pressed and massaged in small circular motions. That felt good. I was more tense than I thought. Look, John, I put my glasses back on. When a man the size of a wardrobe asks you to leave, it's not a polite request. You understand this kind of dynamic well. You use it to achieve your goals. Stop treating me like I'm an idiot. I know what you're doing. He sat back in his chair, a stubborn expression on his face. Still, he didn't contradict me. At least Michael was already in bed, fast asleep, and he wouldn't have to listen to this argument. The poor boy was exhausted. What an emotional roller coaster this day had been. Once again, I wondered about the effect his association with my rich fuck boyfriend would have on his life. Today's incident didn't bode well. Look, about Michael, John said, as if reading my mind. I'm sorry about what happened, but you have to understand that both you and he will have to be a little more careful from now on. I'm a target, and you will be too, to a lesser extent, of course. I let out an exasperated breath. It will keep happening, though, won't it? To Michael? I don't think so. He should probably stop advertising our relationship. Not only the Hannah thing, the guy at the restaurant. It was one person. It's not a big deal. If we get married, will people ask me for money? I imagined I glimpsed a brief twitch at the corner of his mouth, as if he barely managed to suppress a smile. Yes, and you have to learn to say no, but you can avoid most of these things. How? If you say no a couple of times, people will probably stop bothering you. Does this really work? He shifted in his seat. Stella, look, this is why people like me stay in certain circles. So not only will I lose my way of life, but also my friends. Can I at least keep my job? He pretended not to hear the sarcasm. You know I don't expect you to give up anything that's important to you, but you might need... He pressed his lips together. What? Security, he said, leaning forward over the table and fixed his eyes on me. So that's a dialogue that I enjoyed.
Very good. You know what I love about, excuse me, to take a drink of water here. It doesn't fit with the theme, but water is important as well. What I love about well-written dialogue, and I think that definitely applies, is it gives so much movement to a scene. They're sitting there, but you feel like they've gone places, right?
I love dialogue. I absolutely love dialogue if it's well. And I get so annoyed when I read books and all people speak in the same way. Like you have somebody who just finished grammar school and the other person who has a PhD, and they both talk like in elaborate sentences. And I'm always like, didn't somebody look at this? Don't they have an editor? Just why does this person use subordinate clauses there? You know, they don't know. You know, you should not like. And if you notice this, John, for example, here he does use subordinate clauses because he's an Etonian. He went to Eton, he went to Oxford. He is a British man, and he will speak in complete sentences with subordinate clauses. Thank you very much. You know, it's very important, you know, to speak proper English. It's part of his, you know, thing. He has to speak like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And how we speak means so much to us, right? Like as humans, we care about what we say. It's why I always think it's partially why every like human thinks they can write a book. It's because like you think in a language and you speak in it, and you're like, therefore I can write book, you know. Not always the case, right? But there's a naturalness to it. But I love when you can actually, there's so much characterization in it, and I feel like
is there again this came out, but I don't know, you tell me, please educate me.
Right. Well, I think of it because I kind of cut my teeth when I was younger. And people that maybe seen a few episodes may know this. So I had kids when I was very young. I had my first daughter at 20, my second daughter at 21. And I was a single dad. And that's actually kind of when I gave up acting, because trying to do rehearsals at night and things of this nature didn't work.
Hard.
And I think I'd already transitioned. I already kind of loved creating the whole world and being all of the characters. But being all of the characters to me was always like, well, this character would say this one way. Right? This is how this character would talk and express themselves. This is how this character would do that. And so when you see that in writing, it's so magical to get the author going, okay, this is this character, and this is this character. And you don't always need, it helps because we are reading it. So to have he said, she said, those things, you need some of that just to keep people on target. But when the voice is strong enough, you need very minimal of that, right? You every single time someone talks just now.
If they're, I mean, you can have characters that are not very different to each other.
You can, for sure.
And you will have to, I mean, sometimes in those young adult books, you have two boys, talking with each
Right,
other,
sure.
and then
Right.
they're just two teenage boys talking,
Sure.
and they're not very different at all. So you have
Right.
to, use names and stuff.
Sure.
But if you have two different people who are very different, somebody who's like, I don't care what I wear, I'm a scientist, when you're a
Mhm.
scientist, you go to work in jeans and nobody cares what you wear. And then you have the other person with a tie, and it's very important to look absolutely perfect, tip top, like we say. It's completely different ways
Absolutely.
of thinking about life generally, and these people are trying to understand each other, and they're failing miserably sometimes, and this is where all the fun comes, because
That is.
they actually like each other, and if you're different to somebody else, it's also very exciting, but it's also
Yeah.
very annoying sometimes, or very disruptive, or
Mhm.
everything at the same time.
Sure. And so I think we have a little time. You want to give a little bit of reading of the other one? It was Denver. I forget the first part. Until we meet in Denver.
Yes, I could. This is a bit of a it's a crazy book. It doesn't have any structure at all. Like it's
Okay.
like it goes it I basically published this because it had to be done for my sanity.
Sure.
Like this was the only reason I had to
That's the only reason I publish anything. So I'm with you.
exactly. No, but this was like really critical. I would have bad things would have happened to me if I'm not even being
I believe you.
facetious. Like literally I was in such a bad place, and letting this, putting this out there into the world, it somehow let it fly away.
Mhm.
And also it was a way of self-control, because I knew if I'd done that, I would never dare contact that person again. Like it was
Okay.
because I don't trust myself. I'm impulsive. I have ADHD. So this was like, if I do this, I will not dare, touch my phone and send this person a message. And this will be good for me, and this will save me from this relationship that almost killed me, basically, like
Right.
really, really. Anyway, so what happened is I had a friend, a male friend, an American friend who went back to the United States, and this like fucking killed me, because I was very much in love with that person, and my husband knew everything, and he didn't mind very much as long as I was here, which I was going to be, because I love my family and I'm not going anywhere. So this was a highly unusual situation where everybody involved probably knew what was going on, but the American person, he kind of didn't want to see what was going on, even though it was very clear and even though I, in my neurodivergence and ADHD, I was direct and clear. I don't talk in riddles. I'm not British, it's just I'm very anyway. This was a very strange situation, and let me just read you 1.5 pages and no more. Okay. We're sitting on an old tablecloth laid out on the grass. It's almost summer. The days are warm, the nights chilly, and today's a wonderful day for a picnic at the lakeshore. Pizza and wine, water and sky. People around, but who's paying attention to them? We're going on a picnic, I told Dimitra. Just the two of us. It's just like a date. She agreed. This is romantic as hell, but there's no romance involved in what we're doing. He's not looking for that. At least not here, not now, not with me. And how can I be looking for that? I'm the lucky one. I have someone. I have kids, a husband who loves me. My life is sorted out. I'm not sorted out, but you already knew that. There are issues, endless, secret, corroding. But what the hell does he know about that? If there's ever been a person who's fundamentally okay, that's him. It's part of the charm, part of the allure, the rare sane human in the midst of a quagmire of trauma and developmental blunders. Chat and drink, drink and chat. I haven't had much wine, I'm driving. Still, even in my state of soberness, I open up. To him, you see, I can't lie. From him, I can't hide. And like the wonderful being he is, he listens, pays attention, responds, and soothes. We share, and there's the first glimmer of a bond starting to grow and blossom. I talk about the past, about the failures that have me questioning my place in the romance case system. about the demons I've been fighting for half a lifetime, about my female friends with the conquests and the suitors hanging from their every playful word. Unromanceable, unfallen lovable, unfuckable. The mantra has been playing in my head for years. Broken record, as we used to say back in my time. The kittens, I tell him. Everybody likes the purring kittens, the ones patting their eyelids, playing coy, telling you with their chuckles and blushes what a strong man you are. I make my voice high to mock the girls I used to envy and despise. Protect me, big man. Oh, you're so strong. I'm so weak. But I can't even do the imitation right. I'm no kitten. If I'm any animal, I'm an ass. Smart and sure-footed, loud, boring-looking, loyal to a fault. I'm an ass, and here I am making an ass of myself. Don't change, he says, his face suddenly animated. Don't be like those girls. The force in his voice takes me by surprise. That's not what I expected. That's all. I'm going to read from this one. Oh, yes.
I love the ass like imagery right there. And she's going, and then he goes, "Don't be an ass," or "Don't stop being you." And she's, "I'm an ass." Don't like. That's a really,
yeah. No kittens here. There are no kittens around here. That
right.
doesn't exist.
Yeah, that was beautiful. So we've talked a bunch, right, about like your struggles with ADHD and everything. What's something you do? And I'm thinking this is personal to you, but I'm wondering if there's something also like our audience would be able to kind of take away from it. Like, what do you do to kind of protect your mental health now, right? Now that you're kind of aware of these things.
Okay. I learned this very recently, and it's very important for people with neurodivergence who have very limited energy and they have to guard it very jealously. We have to guard our energy. People don't understand that. People don't understand that if you actually get into a half an hour conversation with them, you might not be able to drive home after that because your energy would be depleted. I had to explain that to my brother, and he doesn't believe me. Like he's like, "Oh, come on, if you have this problem, we can discuss." And I told him, "No, I can't discuss, because if I discuss, I might crash my car." Like, people don't get that. And I know they don't because they tell me they don't. So even if you're not neurodivergent, but way more if you are, or if you suspect you are, you must guard your energy jealously, but not in a mean way. People are sometimes very selfish. They literally don't care about anybody else as long as they're getting theirs. You know what I mean? And for some reason, everybody who I've ever met thinks they're a victim. No, others.
Sure.
Yeah, this doesn't work. I know math. This doesn't work.
Right.
Mathematically, it doesn't work that everybody is taken advantage of by everybody else. So
right.
What I did to survive is I brutally, honestly stopped relations with people that were depleting me, because for some people there's a kind of person who will suck away your energy by if you're willing to help, and neurodivergent people are very willing to help. This doesn't mean you don't like them. This doesn't mean you don't love them. This doesn't mean you are not there for them. But it's a conscious realization of the fact that you literally and actually can't help them. They can help themselves. Maybe a mental health professional, but that's a whole different kind of worms, because psychiatry is not exactly helping people these days. But I can talk about this another time. But the point is, you have to be very honest with yourself about who you can help, because you want to help. Somebody's suffering, and there are many people suffering with their mental health. You want to go there, you want to help, you want to make them soup, introduce them to your psychologist. You have to be very brutally honest and maybe a bit cruel and say, can I help this person? If I now give them an hour of my time, will anything be better? Will anything change? Sometimes the answer is yes. And you have to train yourself to understand when the answer is yes and when it is no. This is a very hard thing to do. Yeah. And the other thing is, you have to understand if you need help, because sometimes we just need soothing and not help.
Right.
But then we are burdening other people by needing soothing. So self-soothing is also a thing you have to learn, and it's not easy to do, especially again if you're neurodivergent and you've had a life of rejection, sensitive dysphoria, like some extreme ADHD people like we have had.
Mhm.
It's not easy,
Right.
and
Yeah.
getting over the guilt is a hard thing.
Sure.
But I think I'm living mostly guilt-free now, except when it comes to my kids, because I'm always guilt-ridden about my kids. I always do everything wrong in my mind.
Yeah. Well,
That's
that's interesting you bring that up, because it is like I've had like the experience now of being a single dad with the two. And then my wife and I got married, and she had a daughter. I have a stepdaughter. I've been around since forever. So I say stepdaughter now for clarity.
she's your daughter,
Daughter,
basically.
yeah, all other instances. And then we have our son. So then we have our one. And so we have grandkids, we have adult kids that are out of the house, like we have grandkids here. We have my son's still, like I mentioned earlier, 11. And where I found myself tripping up the most is feeling guilty about things. It's just you want so much to be perfect, and we're not. And we, all of us have.
I mean, forget perfect. You want to be decent. I feel crappy,
Right.
like a crappy parent most of the time.
I know.
Really?
You want to feel competent, right? Like at some point,
Yeah, competent.
I know what
Yeah,
I'm doing. Yeah. And I look at it, and I try to tell my daughters this too with their kids is just as long as your heart's in the right place, like just try to make sure you're keeping that there, and you don't get into you're feeling guilty, now you're parenting out of guilt, because that sends you down another bad road. Just try to do what you think's best. If your heart's in the right place and you're doing what's best, you'll be in that zone where they can make their own life. You just don't want to screw them up.
That's so interesting that you say that, because if you told me that 1 year ago, I would tell you, yeah, but my parents did, like, their heart was in the right place and they did so many things wrong, and like they fucked me up. Now that I know that probably 98% of my personality is the way it is because of my extreme, nuclear grade ADHD, which I do have. And it's like really nuclear. It's like my therapist was like, how did nobody, like, this is like, right. I can't believe you studied, like, this is incredible, because you wouldn't expect somebody with this grade of ADHD to even finish anything. And I never finished anything, only my studies. Now I see that, okay, yes, they did many things wrong, but if I had been like your average, normally sane individual, I would have been all right, more or less. It was the combination on my extreme neurodivergence and the mistakes my parents did, and still I'm able to get through that now. I'm able to work on that. It's still,
you've accomplished so much even with all of that. So I mean, most of us don't go on to be astrophysicists or write books.
Well, I never really was an astrophysicist. Like I never really worked out, but yeah, I mean, I did get the PhD. And again, this was not me. This was not my crazy ADHD self. This was my supervisor, who was a control freak, pretty much like John in my book. Again, this was also a John. Nothing. They have nothing to do with each other. It's just I gathered ideas from everywhere where I could find them, and I just put them together. Like, really, literally, people. When people realize that the John in the book has some things in common with my John, the supervisor who is 30 years older, people are like, oh, it's like, no, there's no oh. You're a writer. You just take, pieces from every, like, doesn't matter if that person has sex in the book. They do, but the other person you took the idea from, you don't know them that way. It's my professor, for fuck's anyway. People doesn't realize that there's this level of, I just get ideas where I can get them, and this is like, this happens. So yeah, he was a control freak, and he wanted to see whatever I was doing, and every calculation and every result. And because of this kind of very strict guidance, I was able to finish my PhD. Otherwise, I don't think I would be able to produce a fully wrapped up project on my own. I think this would be pretty much impossible for me as myself.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I can write a book though, so that's something.
Sure. Well, and you did it. I mean, regardless of how you got there, right? But by hook or by
Yeah,
crook,
exactly.
like, I mean,
But people get surprised by that. Even
sure,
mental health professionals, they
for
will
sure.
say, how, like, this doesn't make sense.
Right.
It does make sense if the situation, there's like
Sure.
the very solid, very confined space I had to work in,
Mhm.
metaphorically, not physically. They didn't put me in a box.
Right. Oh, you weren't in a cubicle? Or you in a cubicle at least?
We had office. I was in the Max Planck for nuclear physics when I was doing my PhD in Heidelberg. Go to
Mhm.
Heidelberg, beautiful town. Like, you won't
Okay.
believe how beautiful it is. And I had just an office made, and it was not a cubicle. No, it was an office. Usually you have offices where 2, 3, 4 students work in scientific institutes.
Sure. Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much for
Thank you
being
so
on the
much
show.
for listening.
Yeah, it was a lovely chat. I hope and everyone, I give this at the end of all the shows, but we're not selling anything, right? There's product placement, I guess, but no one's giving any of us money for any of this. So
No, it's a
if you
hobby.
like the
Fun.
show, yes, please go on, please support, buy a natural, buy all the books she showed today, and support everyone. That's the best way to support the show. It's the only thing you need to do. But and thank you so much. I mean, it was really my pleasure to drink in the early morning for me,
Yeah,
evening for you.
I drank quite a bit of whiskey now. Let's see if I'm able to go upstairs.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully you'll have a nice night's sleep now. I just have to
Thank
figure out how to
you.
get through the day after all this.
Yeah, you have to drink some more coffee, I suppose. Yeah.
That's true. That's true.